Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of MUP Halo, the only Halo Flashpoint podcast that is actually hosted by the number one Halo Flashpoint player in the world. Technically, as of right now, it is hosted by the number one player in the world. I'm your host, not the number one player in the world, Wiki Dave, and with me is my co-host who is the number one player in the world, James-005. How are you doing, James?
I'm doing well. Technically is doing a lot of work in that sentence, Dave, but thank you very much.
Yes, we will elaborate on what I'm saying there, but we're going to milk this for the small window we have. As we're recording this on the 29th of the 4th, James is actually number one on the global rankings. Most likely that will change by the time the episode comes out. It may even change by tomorrow, but that is technically what it is right now, and I'm pretty sure the Truth and Reconciliation guys are probably fuming right now, but they'll come back. So what we'll do is we are actually just going to be talking about list building and later in this episode, and it's all going to be James giving his expertise or his experience in the list building side of things, and especially now that we've got war games under our belts for a few more weeks, we can actually start to dive into some of the nitty gritty of it. So this is going to be a very technical, rules heavy episode, but obviously we can always gain something from it, and I'm going to be learning a lot. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of tournaments around where I am, so this is going to be more of me learning as much as I can. But before we do that, we're going to jump straight into the news. So obviously we've got the big news, which big in the sense of we don't get a lot of news, so this is going to be as big as we're going to get. The app actually got launched. So the Halo app was launched, and that actually gives a lot of features people were really, really hoping for. We're talking about building lists online. We're talking about tournament management. There's a few other things that I didn't expect, such as having a collection kind of I don't know what you call it, catalog or whatever, just a way of actually tracking which models you do or don't have. And also free rules, which has been a big one of people wanting, because some people just want to pick up the game and just, don't necessarily want to buy, the big book to actually get it. The big box, I should say, the starter box. They can actually get the free rules online, and it's very similar but different from what the other rules or the companion apps that we have for Kings of War or other Mantic games, but it is different enough that I understand why they've actually kept it separate. So before we kind of dive into a lot of the features there, I'll get James, what's your first impressions of the app, which is currently in beta, so what we're about to discuss could be subject to change?
Yeah, so great to see the app, great to see the features in it. As someone who works in technology myself, pushing something to production on a Friday is a bold move. So I did enjoy that from Mantic. They seem to have got away with it, which is good. And then the software is pretty good, and you can see them as you go in, sort of tweaking and sort of working with it. To sort of make improvements as they go, which is just great to see. It's not the absolute most polished experience, particularly if you do things like tournament running. It worked very, very well but it is very much the first version of something, and I can't wait to see where they go with it and what they do with it, because it's this is a fantastic starting point for them.
Yeah, definitely, and. Just to follow up, just before we get too many angry people commenting, so right now the only global only rankings that are actually been submitted is the recent tournament that James actually went to in the UK. So we've only got one kind of set of results so far, which congratulations, James did one, but that does make him the number one in the world. So we know this will be changed. So everyone don't freak out. We know it's just going to be a little period of time. Just want to settle everyone, because when you talk about competitive stuff, people get very, very passionate about it, but we can actually see how they're going to be structuring things going forward. So if you go to the app right now, you can see the global rankings there. A bit of feedback, and we've talked about this on the Discord. of people wanting a little bit more region-specific rankings as well. Because we've only got one set at the moment, it's hard to tell whether that's going to be implemented or not. There's no way to tell with just one set of data. We've only got one tournament result at the moment, so it'll be interesting to see whether we're actually going to go into regions, how specific are regions are we going to go by country, or things are going to be grouped similar to, like, say, the FIFA, like in how we got different regions around the world. Whether they do that, I'm not quite sure. Have you heard anything in that aspect, James? Do you know if they're going to break it down a little bit more, or is it just at the moment the global rankings is going to be the only way?
You can do, I think, global and country at the moment. Now that's currently a live topic of conversation, because for a lot of people, particularly people like on mainland Europe, that's not the easiest filter in the world to use because of the sort of the open border and the geography. Particularly, and also for large places like America, seeing any event in America is probably not as helpful. So I think that's something they'll look at. It's one of these areas where this is, new enough as new enough as an app that I'm sure they'll get that sorted out. I mean, it's still better than Facebook, right? If I want to search for a Halo event on Facebook, it won't even let me select in my country as an option. So we're already functionally, ahead of Meta on that one. So, it's one of these things. I'm sure that'll come and evolve as we go.
Yeah, it'll be quite interesting to see how they do it. I mean, by country seems a bit silly, to be honest, just because of, especially, some places may only have one tournament, but they're close enough to other countries that, it's well spread. So I can see your point in that regard. And in terms of other features of the app there, we'll go over things that are pretty simple. The rules, there got to be 3 rules there. It is a paid subscription, and I think that's something that we probably want to clarify of what benefits you actually get for the paid and what is the free. So under the free plan, so if you just sign up to right today with not paying a cent, you get the free version of the Halo Flashpoint rules. And I think that's just the base rules. That's not including the War Games expansion, or probably even any future expansions as well. Up to 1 Halo Flashpoint app list builder list. So that is similar to what they have done with their other companions, is that you can have, I think it's only 2 actually, you can have 2 army lists that you can build for free, but you can't have more than that, so you pretty much have to wipe the one you've got and then build another one. And you also have the tournament organizer unranked access. There's a few asterisks and disclaimers there, like the tournament's limited to 8 attendees. The list output does not contain full keyword and stat integration. Lists submitted to tournaments in the Halo Flashpoint app do not count towards the list limit. And that's pretty much the only restrictions there. Now, if you pay the subscriber fee, which at the moment, and I think this is American pricing, it's $1.17 a month, and that's just during beta. It looks like it's going to be $2.99 after beta, and beta is expected to last for 3 months. So if you are signing up, just keep in mind of the price change. Most likely that will happen in 3 months' time. If you are a subscriber, you get all the rules unlocked. So this is, and they have specifically said all rules, but in the free version just said free version Halo Flashpoint rules. So that's why I think it doesn't include the expansion pack rules. So keep that in mind as well, because it won't include some of the new keywords. Also, unlimited list builder lists. It's a very weird way of phrasing it, but that basically means you can just make as many lists as you can, and it looks like it does include all the special rules, all the command keywords, and all that fun stuff. You also get access to the tournament organizer ranked access, which qualifying tournaments can be submitted. So it looks like if you want to, be registered officially for tournaments, you might have to actually pay for a subscription, which I don't know how I feel about that. It seems a bit sneaky, but that's what it states there at the moment. Also, you get exclusive service record badges, which is, I think that's very similar to what you can actually do with the online Halo as well. You get badges and so forth. How that works, I'm not entirely sure. But we also have global rankings rank identifiers, which I'm not quite sure what that means. Do you know what that means, James? Because they got rank in quotations.
Yeah, I'm not clear on that, to be honest. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
No, but I'm assuming it's going to be stuff that's going to be fleshed out over a bit of time as they get more results in there, as we can see a little bit more. The other surprise with it, and this actually comes with a free subscription as well, there's actually a My Collection. So that actually has all the models that are currently released, and you can actually toggle whether you've got it or not, which is a nice feature. They actually don't have that with the Kings of War or anything like that on that side of the fence. So this is actually a very unique thing for the Halo side of it, which makes a little bit more sense. I mean, this, this game is a little bit different from the other games, and having it toggling like that is pretty good. I like it. And also got links to, if you actually want to get that model, it will go to the shop. So for a collector, for myself, this is why I'm pointing this out. I like this. This is really good, especially how we're going to be seeing get more releases, more things released over the coming years, and this will be a nice way of tracking it from that point of view. And that's going to be really important as well, especially with the limited releases. If with games like this, you do get limited releases and models that aren't available constantly. It'd be nice to actually see them here. If you are new to the game, you can see what maybe to look out for from that collection point of view. So that's really cool. I really like that, and it was a very, very nice surprise. And obviously you got all the others like find events and global rankings, which seems a bit buggy at the moment. It keeps on breaking for me when I'm playing around with it, but ultimately it'll be interesting to see how this all develops. Now, it does make sense this is separate from their normal companion at the moment. It is very different, so it's a very different kind of layout. It's got similarities, but there's a lot of differences there that it makes sense to kind of separate them, but it looks like they are planning to integrate them together eventually. But I think this is probably the smartest way for them to go about it, and it's going to be interesting, especially people that are new to the Mantic companion, kind of how they kind of lay things out and work things. I think this is a really good introduction for the app and how people will use it going forward, and they'll get a lot of data from this beta, as they call it. Well, what about you, James? What's your overall thoughts in diving deeper into this?
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic start, right? It's a fantastic thing to have. We're not a year into Halo. This is a great companion tool for everybody. It makes list building, list sharing much easier. It makes running events. We're not at the mercy of some. There are different kinds of third-party software out there for tournament running at the moment. Having it all in one app for Halo, while that app isn't quite as fully featured as some of those mature sort of system agnostic softwares that people are running, this is still a really good it's a really good system, and it's great to have that in app. There's a lot of kind of first world problems about why isn't this in the Mantic companion. I think my understanding is this is to do with the way the license is structured with Microsoft. Ultimately, when dealing with third-party IP, there are quite strict rules and accounting that are needed to kind of keep these things working, and it doesn't seem that it would be at all practical for them, or they've explored it. It doesn't seem that it's at all practical for them to try and put this inside the Mantic companion, at least for now. And the amount of kind of feedback, why isn't this in the Mantic companion, I've seen is sort of it's a little bit ridiculous. So I'm hopefully people can just live with the fact that it's not in the Mantic companion and move on, which is I think where we are.
I feel like the people are coming from a cost point of view, the fact they're paying another subscription on top of what they're already paying for. So I get that aspect of it. I also do understand how they do need to keep it separate for the licensing side of it, which I do agree. I've my gut feeling, and I've got no way of proving this, or the way to prove it is just to blatantly ask Clive and see if he says yes or no. But ultimately, we don't know for sure, but it sounds like this is just a better way of doing the accounting. They probably had to get special permission to say, hey, we're going to use your IP and we're going to be charging this ongoing fee for it. What are the rules around that? They probably have to be very, very strict on that. And the minute you mess up the accounting, one, you lose that trust with your third-party stakeholder. There's a lot of complicated issues you can get from a business point of view if they muck this up and they don't get those numbers right. and with it will play out in court, which you don't want. And even though that may not seem like a lot because it's only like $1.17, it can escalate, and they could lose the license. And you don't even want to play with that idea of losing that trust with them. So I think you're 100% right of why they kept it separate. They did mention they are going to eventually integrate it though, so that's why I think people need to go, all right, this is not about it never being in the app of the companion. I think this is their way of establishing it's a separate thing, so when they do integrate it, the charge won't be integrated either. But we could be wrong, but I think that it's going to stay separate after they've actually moved it across as well.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's my spiel on it. But if you've got a different opinion on it, I'll definitely reach out to us. Join the Discord or flick us a comment. That's just how our gut feeling on it. But it seems fairly straightforward. So yeah, that's the app. Stress test it. Make sure you go in there, play with it. Even if you don't go to the tournaments, like me, I found some benefit with the collection and the force list, playing around with those as well. And I think it's really a really good start. Next step, we'll go over the new products that have been released. I know this is not on your list, James, but we might as well mention it. You now can get the PDF copies of all the booklets that you got. So you got the normal rules, which are for free on the app anyway, so I don't know why you would want to get it unless you're like me and just a bit of a collector there. We also got the War Games PDF. You also got a free organizer. I think it's organize something. I don't know what was the official name for it. I can't remember where I put it. But the Organizer PDF, Tournament Organizer PDF, which is free. And you also can get a free PDF for the achievements. So you know how we've talked about the achievements in the past. You can actually now just download that directly from the shop. So that if you ever need it, you can always go there. It's $0, so you can definitely just click it, download. I think you will have to sign up for an account to do it. I don't think you can just click it and it'll download it, but it is there. So if you are looking to build a tournament, want to do a bit of practice for yourself, just want to explore it a little bit more, it is there. I did notice the achievements, and I've looked around for it, and I might be wrong. Are the achievements in the app? I don't think they are.
No, I haven't. So you can get a total achievement score for events, but I don't believe the list of achievements is currently in the app. No.
In the app, okay. Because I looked under the rules as well, because I thought it might be there, and I couldn't see it. I mean, obviously it could change over time, but that's something that that would be our first recommendation. Put the achievements in there if it's going to be such a key component, especially when tournament scoring. I think it should be in the app, so it makes a lot of sense. But it's also, as I said, available as a PDF if you want to download it yourself. Cool, and I think that's about it. I do recall them also showing, and I couldn't find this on the website, so I think it was externally. They were doing a package of the new book, where James-005 comes back, and also the game. And I can't remember where that was actually available, but I did remember seeing that. I'll have to actually find that somewhere. But I know they released that. But otherwise, those are the only new releases we've had over the past week or two. I think I covered all the new products. There was nothing else that I missed there. Was there, James?
No, I don't believe so.
Cool. All right, cool. So we'll be holding out some new rules, and we obviously will bring it up here in the next episode if they release anything. Next on the news segment, we've got the etc. Updates that we have there, and I'll let James to run through the specifics on that one. So go, James.
Hey there, I'm Brian.
And I'm Rick.
From Dead Zone, the podcast.
And you're listening to Mantic Universe Podcast.
For everything Mantic under the sun.
So we know we're in Season 1. What was released at the same time as the app is sort of the first kind of errata. We're also aware that sort of they're going to look to errata and balance patch again in October after the UK Nationals. I'd expect from sort of conversation that will be a more significant update, but we have had a few changes so far. So the first change is something we've been expecting for a little while. They've removed the language from the rulebook around being able to lay models down when pinning. First, I found that quite irritating because it was quite interesting tactically to lay a model down. It was also made for a much cleaner visual guide to what was going on the table. But there is a view people were taking liberties with how far they were moving a model as they knocked it over. So fine, that's been cleared up. That's really just a quality of life improvement. There are some mild changes to the way flight and return to sender have been clarified in the rules. They are so minor, I'm not going to cover them because they shouldn't really ever come up. Just in terms of, but there's some clarification there, and then probably the core change, the one that's actually going to make a difference on the table, is a change the way Sticky works. So, in the rulebook version of Sticky, this applies to a weapon. You need 2 hits and line. If you get 2 hits and line of sight to your opponent, you strip their shields completely. Currently, this is present on the sticky grenades, the plasma grenades, and this is available on the plasma launcher. The change now is that you no longer need line of sight, but you require 3 hits in order on your shoot test in order to strip shields, which makes this materially different in terms of likelihood to affect the game. You can do it without line of sight now, which is a little bit of something, but the majority of times you'll move from a position where the majority of times you were going to stick and remove shields to the majority of times you won't, as a result of this change, which does have some balance implications and some which we'll probably get to when we talk a little bit more about this. But I certainly think the plasma Gungnir probably drops back to being worse than the grenade Gungnir on the basis of these changes.
Yeah, interesting. I think they meant the secret, trying to nerf probably the elites a little bit, but I don't know how much it would make them weaker. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Stop it! He's already dead. Will probably be my view. It was a weird. Of all of the things I would have thought of needed a look at this stage of the game, and there's 2. Granted, they're bigger than this. This isn't the one I would have picked. But I think it is what it is. I mean, the rules committee have got more line of sight than I do. It may very well be, with the potential with the stick grenades coming from the spike grenades coming with the banished in a few months. Maybe this is a change they need to get ahead of because there's stuff coming down the pipe. So definitely interesting.
Yeah, because as you said in the previous episode, a couple episodes ago, that they've already written these rules that are going to be in probably the banished stuff already. So if they are going to be making changes, this could be getting ahead of what's actually written in those rule books for the brute characters. So it'll be interesting to see whether this actually aligns there. So for anyone that is interested, the etc. Changes, we'll put a link down below, but you can actually get them in the app. So if you go to the rules section at the bottom of that list, there's a list of getting started, rules introduction. I think it's section number 20. Right at the bottom we'll have the etc. log, which looks like it's going to be a section that is constantly updated with these etc. rules updates. So it doesn't look like they're going to make a big announcement when that happens, because I didn't see any article when this dropped. But it might be worth just pinning that or favoriting that particular page and just checking once in a while of any additional changes that are made there. So it's worth noting.
Yeah, I think they're aiming to do this twice a year, they've said, so sort of with a view to do it kind of April and October, which sort of makes sense. So they should. I think probably there wasn't a big fuss about this because it was day and date with the app launch. I think if there's a bigger update coming later on, we might well see. A bigger update later on, we should see articles and stuff, but definitely worth keeping an eye on. Or just keep listening to the podcast. We'll always tell you when these things change. Yeah,
we don't have a life. We'll talk about it. Now, the next step, or the next thing we have on our list is, you said Season 1 there. Is that just
I think we covered that in the previous section. That's just the sort of the fact that Season 1 will run out in October. That's sort of been confirmed now. We've got we know that we know there's another balance patch coming then. I mean, it's probably a little early for me to start talking about what I would hope they would do in that balance patch, particularly as we haven't seen the sort of the banished turn up yet in July. But let's put a pin in that one, and probably in a future episode, it's one where I could talk a little bit about some of the quality of life stuff I'd love to see in that balance patch. But we could probably move on.
Yeah, we could probably talk about that next episode because we have something possibly cooking that will be a really good discussion point. I guess also just to follow on that with the seasons, kind of that's the approach we're going here. Has there been anything written? Because I can't find anything in the app, can't find anything with the news articles, anything officially stating the time frame between the seasons, or is this all just through what we're hearing on Discord?
So I have it. I have it on good authority. Season 1 will end after the UK Nationals at the end of September.
Okay.
Or season 0 will end, and then season 1 will begin from that date. I think Ronnie talked about in the app announcement video some stuff about rankings and sort of prizes for rankings at the end of a season, which is good. I don't know if they've officially confirmed. To be honest, these things are, as long as you know in advance when they are, they don't need to hit a very rigid calendar, but it feels like it's going to run a year to October. Seems like the sort of thing we're starting to hear about, which is it's good to have a season and a calendar to work around as a community and to sort of, to understand, but it may even be different in different jurisdictions for some areas. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think it will be important because these tournaments that are going to be recorded on these global rankings are community run to a big degree. So it could change when tournaments are scheduled as well. So we could see a whole bunch of tournaments happening at the end of a particular season and not so much at the start of another one. There could be things like that. There could be a little bit of movement around. It's just speculative at the moment, but I think there might be something along those lines because it could be a case of people who really want to get those final results in before the season ends, especially if it's a very tightly fought top of the table.
Yeah,
cool.
Time will require.
Go ahead,
right? Oh, sorry, Dave. Go on.
No. Go ahead. I was just saying, go ahead.
Time will tell. I think the main thing is, over time, the community will get into a rhythm, and Mantic will adapt to that as well. So, what's really good to see at this stage is this level of investment from Mantic and this level of support. Right, everything else from that is sort of secondary to that. That consideration.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
I think definitely responding and staying in touch with the community is key for the health and longevity of the game. It's going to die pretty quickly. If we've seen this before, if companies go, hey, we're going to tell you how to enjoy this game. We're going to tell you how you guys should play it, how you're going to organize it, and you have to stick to our rules or you're out. And we've seen that happen. And there's a big company called GW that has pushed that a bit, and it has killed the game or the hobby for a lot of people. And Mantic are definitely fully aware that they don't want that. They want to give more opportunities for people to enter the game than push people away. So hopefully they continue with listening to that feedback and continuing to evolve the game, and also admitting when they're wrong as well. I think that's the hardest bit. If they get something wrong, if something isn't working, they rectify it instead of just dig their heels in and try and force through it, because that never goes well for anybody involved when that happens. So we'll jump, because we're still talking about it, rankings. You noted down rankings, how they work. I think we covered a lot of them with the prizes. With the prizes have always bothered me, because if they offer more models as prizes, it's actually not that good of a deal, because you've already got the models, right? So what kind of prizes would you want?
Yeah, I don't know precisely. I mean, I don't know precisely. There's lots of things they can do. Historically, games companies have offered sort of, fancy tokens, fancy stat cards, alternate, fancy dice, stuff like that. Maybe some alternate coloured orders dice. There's sort of different things. Alt sculpts are cool, and that's a good idea. I don't imagine they're going to put anyone's face on a Spartan, but there's all sorts of options and thoughts, and who knows? I mean, I think that I'm always wary of unspecified fantastic prizes, but let's give Mantic the benefit of the doubt. I'm sure we'll see pretty soon what they've got in mind there. I'm sure it'll be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I hope that it is unique and not just. I know. Not just models, just if you've already got the models and you get the prize is models that you actually just won the tournament with, it kind of loses some of its excitement. That's in my opinion, anyway.
I mean, maybe the interesting thing, what they've done in other games, more card games, is they do kind of World Championship decks, right? Where they kind of, if they've got a deck that won the World Championship, they put out an alternate, art or a different version of that deck for players to use. Maybe like prize
Your own
like
fire team.
Your own fire team with your fire team's name, with some alternate stances. That'd be intensely cool. I don't know. They've got this new fancy resin, industrial high quality resin printing capability at Mantic. I'm sure they're looking for interesting things to do with that. So we shall see. I mean, I think the ranking system itself is great. I've played many games in other game systems that have used a very, very similar system to this. This system does exactly what you want from a ranking system, which is it encourages more people to play more of the game, which is the purpose of a ranking system. So it's great to see them implement that, and I'm really looking forward to seeing, how that plays out as we get more results, and it's not just one event that I happen to win on the rankings. I'm really looking forward to seeing. I'm really looking forward to seeing some competition.
Stop the count. It's done. Let's just end the season
stop the
right
count.
now. Stop the count.
I do think as well. Just if anyone's looking to do well, I mean, ranking. They've implemented this ranking system in a way, because I know I think we're a long way past this as a community. There was a period of time where rankings were controversial in wargaming because of, frankly, idiots. But the main thing to the main thing to bear in mind with this system. So I've talked before. One of the things I've done in the past is performance monitoring systems. It's something I'm quite close to. The great thing about this system that they're using is what it does is it just encourages more people to play. You can go to an event and have a bad week, bad day in terms of your results. You can go to an event and take something substandard. What you're looking to do is it's going to take your 4 best results. So, provided you go to 4 events, you will get a score. You'll be on, you'll be up somewhere on the rankings. The better you do at those, the better. But like, if you've been to 4 events and you want to take something super soft just to try it out, that is not going to harm your score. It is impossible to harm your score by turning up to events, and that leads to a much less, in my experience, sweaty gaming environment than some of the other systems where like losses can penalise you. This is a way better system than some of the ones I've seen, so I'm very, very infused by Mantic bringing this system to the game rather than the sort of system we have in Marvel Crisis Protocol or in Star Wars Shatterpoint, where turning up to an event, I memorably in Shatterpoint turned up to an event as the top ranked Anakin Skywalker player, in a similar situation where there hadn't been many events, but nevertheless I then played and won 2 games with Anakin Skywalker and dropped to 3rd by winning 2 games with him. Those systems actively encourage you in a lot of circumstances. Under no circumstances play any more games, mate. Like, if you don't play any more games, you're fine. If you play more games, you're actually going to be worse off. This system does the opposite. This system will always encourage you to play more games and to go to an event, and it leads to a lot less sweaty environment for players. So I'm really, really pleased to see this being the system that they bring to this game.
Good. That's good to hear, because I mean, obviously you got a perspective that I definitely don't, and maybe a lot of other people don't, of other systems and how they work. And I think this is on the right track. So let's see how it plays out now. And also on a side note, Ronnie does make his own rum. So there is a specific rum that they actually have given out as prizes in events in the past. It's actually in Kings of War. It's actually in canon. This rum is actually brewed, so maybe he'll offer the rum. I've told myself after I get my heart transplant, I'm going to try and score myself some of that rum as being the first alcohol I drink after I become well again and able to actually drink alcohol. So if anyone does get their hands on that rum and wins the Halo tournament and they're offering that rum, I will try and get it off. I will buy it off you. Let's just say.
I did not know that, and if I get any, I will make sure it's. I'll make sure it's winging its way in your direction, Dave, because I don't drink, so it's no loss to me.
Oh, there you go. I will take that. I will take your. I will benefit from your skill. I'll more than happy to. Cool. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes, and we'll obviously keep an ear out. So the last bit of our particular news section is tariffs. So that's always a fun discussion to have when it comes to world politics at the moment. So we're not going to go into the politics angle. We're just going to talk about the implementation of tariffs and how that's actually going to affect how we're going to get our hands on the product. So I'll chuck it to James because he just wrote tariffs, so I don't actually know what angle he wants to go here.
So yeah, I mean, look, like everybody in the world, I'm not going to, unlike everybody in the world, I'm not suddenly going to pretend to be an expert on tariffs, right? There is, if you want unqualified opinions about tariffs on the internet, that is not in short supply right now. So, I mean, I think the main thing I want to say, Mantic put out a really good blog post, which I just encourage you to read. We'll link it in the show notes, talking about tariffs and their impact on on the company a bit. I know other games companies are sort of taking different lines about how much they're talking about this. I think the best thing, what I'm really conscious is, sort of, we have, I've been gaming, 25 years now. We have the healthiest wargaming environment, more actually, crikey, probably nearer 30. We have the healthiest gaming environment and most vibrant sort of gaming availability and choice. Available from any point probably in the last 30 years. Now is the best time to be a gamer. Any economic slowdown or kind of trade realignment is going to cause friction, which is a nice way of saying some people aren't going to make it. Some companies probably aren't going to make it out of this. I don't think Mantic are in that boat. I don't think GW are in that boat. But I think what I would just encourage people to do is if you can. Continue to support your FLGS, continue to buy real product, continue to be active, because now's a moment where companies are going to, I don't like, let's not weep for the corporations, but actually a lot of wargaming is people with very small companies where actually they are, they're taking risks. They're the people bringing you the product, and actually, now's a moment where I would just, things are likely to get a little bit more expensive. So, look after yourselves and your family. Think about what you're doing. But if you can spend a bit of money at your FLGS, with smaller providers, and smaller companies, Mantic's probably a mid-size in this industry. Still, it's really worth now just continuing to support those as best you can so that they're still here as we come out of the other side of what I think by anyone's reckoning is going to be an interesting time economically.
Yeah, and also,
hopefully that wasn't too controversial.
No, I think you played the straight bat with it. But also, I do think you're 100% right. Now, when it comes to tariff as well, things are changing so often. By the time this episode comes out, there'll probably be a new kind of tariff kind of deal or something would have changed with the tariffs as well. I mean, the last thing we got told is that they're cutting back on some of the Chinese tariffs, and there's the 90-day hold. Whether that actually stays in place afterwards, we don't know. And things are changing so much that by the time that Wave 3 actually arrives or starts to get shipped out, things could be vastly different in terms of what's actually in place. So, for we know, there could actually be no tariffs on stuff coming. And I think, if memory serves me right, it's coming from China, a lot of the product that they're manufacturing at the moment. So, if there is a Chinese tariff in place, it will affect some of the costs that is going to America. But obviously, it won't affect the costs coming to me here in New Zealand. But if they are sending it to the UK first, and then they send the product out, how does the tariffs work in that sense? So I think there's a lot of unknowns of how does I understand. I think it's the country of origin is the particular rule, but whether that's still in place, who knows? But there's so many elements. So I think I have seen this online as well. People demanding answers from Mantic of what you're going to do. They don't know because we don't know what the scenario is going to be by the time Wave 3 comes along and what they can actually do. So I would say, definitely be patient with this whole thing because things are changing so rapidly, and it's only fair. And the fact that they're talking about it all is it's rare, and I'm glad they are being very transparent with it. And to hit on the point that James made about the size of Mantic, from my understanding, they don't even have a full-time customer service person at the moment. And that's just how bare bones they are when it comes to some of their staffing. So the more people buy the products, the more money they've got to throw around. Hopefully, the more money they plug into the operational side of a business, because that does make or break a business, or whether they're able to, get things out the door, get the business moving. If you don't put any money into your operational, and I'm a workforce manager by trade is what I do, so I see this all the time. If you don't put into the operational, things will fall down on the front line, and which is not what you want, because ultimately the ones that lose are your customers, and once you lose your customers, it's quite hard to get them back. So ultimately, we'll find out together how it goes, and if we get any inside knowledge, we'll get permission to mention it, but we will mention what we can. We typically don't get any inside knowledge. Me and James, we only find out pretty much what everyone else finds out, but if we ever get told anything, well, we're sure to share it if we're allowed to.
The Mantic Universe Podcast. So much universe and so little time.
And I think that's all the news. Do you have anything else there, James?
I think that's us for news.
All right, perfect. Oh wait, we have got an ending thing, don't we? There we go.
How could we forget that luxury sound effect? There we go.
Yeah, it's great. I'm seeing whether we can hype it. I'll change it slightly. I'll see how we go. But we've been very efficient. This episode's been very organised and very efficient, so I'm very impressed by us. I don't know whether that actually makes it enjoyable, or whether the episodes previously have been more enjoyable because we're all over the show, but I guess so far so good. Anyway, so let's jump into James is gonna run the show from here. We're going to talk about the first 2 UK events to use the War Games. We're going to have James's experience in War Games, and let's just talk about list building, because now that we can start fleshing this out a bit, we've got the app, so we can play around with a few things. All right, James, hit me. What have you got for me?
Yeah, so we're going to just talk a little bit about list building. So I'm really conscious. This is new. Everybody is figuring this out as we go, so I'm not going to pretend to have any sort of expert answers here. I've worked with I spend lots of time tinkering with lists, because that's the way my brain works. I've been fortunate enough to attend the first 2 events held with points. I worked with my teammate Paul, who was going to be with us today. Unfortunately, can't be due to a scheduling clash, so we'll get Paul on at a later date. Paul won the first event with a list that we workshopped together. Albeit his did go off in a slightly different direction to mine, and proved to be the better list on the day. And then I took a different evolution of that list to the next event, which was the Flashpoint Bravo at Mantic HQ, and was fortunate enough to win that event. So what I'm hoping to do with this section is talk a little bit about list building and sort of the approach to it. So you may disagree with our conclusions, and ultimately we may prove to be kind of wrong about some stuff, which is part of the evolution. But hopefully the process and sort of the thinking is useful to people out there, even if ultimately you come to your own conclusions. And I'd really encourage you to find out what works for you, because this is still a game where the majority of the result of the game is decided on the table. Even sort of, you can help or harm yourself with a list, but if you can't play that list on the table, you aren't going to win anyway. So it's definitely worth putting your own spin on things. So that's kind of my disclaimers out the way, but that's kind of where we wanted to start.
So all the hate mail, please leave a comment in the comments below. Leave it on Spotify. Do all that stuff. I'm sure to pass on all the feedback to James of what you disagree
please, with. Yeah. If you just send all of your death threats to spamfilter@yorkshiretea.com, that would be much appreciated. So,
wait a second.
No, so we talk about a little bit about list building. So, I think one of the things when I see online discussion about lists at the moment is there's probably kind of a couple of factors that I think people are maybe overlooking. So, first things first, where you want to start with a list. I mean, you need your points. You need to know, what you're building for. What faction you want to play. But then, I do think what's really important is, what are you trying to get out of the list that you're building? So that can be, I'm going to this tournament with these events, or I'm going to my club night, I want to do this, or I just want to try out this model. Starting with an objective in mind is really important, because it helps you kind of frame around what you want to do. And it helps you sort of build in a direction that's sort of consistent. Now, cards on the table, I'm generally building towards a tournament because I'm a competitive player. So the rest of the advice is going to be framed through the idea that you're going to look to do the best you can with a list. Because that's a clean direction we can talk in. If your objective is to do something else, like get the maximum value out of a Zvezda, hopefully there'll be stuff in here that's useful. But it's sort of that's more esoteric, and only those are different kind of criteria you can go after as an individual. So once you've decided what you want to do, and particularly for events, one of the things really worth looking at, in my experience, is the kind of what are the scenarios you want to be good at. There are 9 different game scenarios right now available. If you're going to an event, probably there are about 6 different ones in use. Knowing which ones you're going to face is really important because you want different tools for different jobs. So in Capture the Flag, you need to get a flag back to your home zone very quickly. That makes things like quantum translocators and scout really important. Also bringing a lot of pickup weapons that you'll have to drop in order to grab that flag, may be a detriment. If you're going to play Oddball, the current version of Oddball, the only way to strip the Oddball from someone, you need rapid fire. And then things like Strongholds really emphasize displacement. So knowing the scenarios that you're going to play is really important to deciding which way to go with a list. And generally, the later in the event scenarios, the more weight you should give them, because you're more likely to be having a close game in those where you're going to want the advantage. Is that scanning for you, Dave? Does that make sense? Anything to add?
Oh, no, it makes complete sense. I mean, do your research. That's basically the summary of that, is make sure you're aware what's going to come up. I mean, from my understanding, you don't really know what exact game type you're going to be playing until you start playing it. So you want to be prepared to whatever scenario happens. You want to know what your strategy is before you even roll the first dice or place the first figure. You kind of already want to know what's the scenarios you're going to get hit with, and then you just also want to make sure that you know exactly your plan, and also have it flexible enough that you can adapt to it when it comes up.
Yeah, and I think that's really fair. I think tournaments they do the thing which is really good, which is they publish, certainly Mantic's tournaments, they publish the kind of the round order and what games in each round in advance. I think that's really good because it lets players, anything that lets players think about the game when they're not actually playing the game is really useful. I think that's always a benefit. So it helps people stay engaged with the game. It also means you could do things like practice, which I know some game systems consider cheating, but I think is a fantastic thing to do with your friends. Similarly, if if you've not got an event coming up but you want to practice kind of list building kind of 4 events as an abstract concept, randomize 4 scenarios and go, right, I'm building a list for one of these 4 scenarios, and then when you sit down to play the list, just randomize which one of those 4 you're playing. There's lots of ways to do that. Similarly, if you're doing something like, I know there are online leagues starting where they're going to announce the rounds in advance and you could change your list for the round. If you know exactly what you're going after, you're playing Slayer, you can bring the killiest, toughest thing you want. If you're playing Flag, you're bringing the most mobile thing you can bring. So that's really really worth kind of factoring in. Just thinking, and you can
also you can also be aware of the changes. Like one of the big changes, and a good example of this is the Oddball Reloaded. How they changed how that whole game type kind of operated. So if you were just going off the rule book and weren't aware of those changes on when they released it, you would be going into that scenario, already handicapped in a sense of not being adapted to the new rules or being aware of the changes that are with that particular map type. So it's so important just to make sure that you practice and you get familiar with that, because it's going to give you a bit of an advantage over those that haven't done that.
Yeah, and also, if you're just building a list for whatever, people often want to bring like a list that's, all right, this will be, my list that I'll bring whenever, knowing that you're going to want to sort of pinning for Oddball, knowing that you're going to need the ability to grab a flag and run. There are things that you can do there, knowing you're going to need a decent amount of killing power and some displacement. All of those are good. So before we get into sort of more specifics of then let's attack a list. And what I'll do is I'll go through how I built the list for the tournament just gone.
We'll post this link in the comments as well for those that are interested. We'll post that in the description. So if you don't need to write this all down as you go through it, we'll post it below.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other hygiene factors are you need to think: are you going 4 wide? So the standard fire team is 4 models. Are you doing anything like? Are you bringing the Master Chief list? If you're saying Healy, are you going 3 wide? You just need to decide on that reasonably early. But by default, you want 4 models because you don't want to be so wide that you're fighting to go first in oddball or flag, and you want a decent quality of model. Similarly, if you go kind of 3 wide, you're going to have trouble where you've got to cover multiple bases in things like King of the Hill, Strongholds. So 4 is the default, but if you're going to do something different, you want to think about that up front. And then command dice. So we talked. You can go back to listen to our interview with Isaac, the UKTC winner from earlier in the year, where he talks very eloquently about the power of kind of the additional actions given by orders dice. You want, wherever possible, action compression. So you want that ability to take more actions than your opponent. Ultimately, that's one rubric through which you will, you can consider. Success will be generally the person who gets to take more effective actions. So I have a rough rule of thumb. If you're going to if you built a list, if you only have 2 orders dice or 3 orders dice, your list is not a functional list at the moment. I don't play Sangheili, so Sangheili players might have a different view, but certainly from a Spartan perspective, you need more than 3 orders dice. So that in practice means bringing at least 2 tacticians. I'll generally bring 2 tacticians to a club night game or a friendly game, and then but you're going to need 5 or 6 orders dice if you're going to be competitive at a tournament. I'm hoping one of the balance patch changes we get actually is that Tactician is no longer connected to how many orders dice you get. Tactician is like the rerolls and the holdover, and the orders dice is handled slightly separately. But that's a wish list thing from me. So at the moment, you're looking for an organised playlist to be bringing 3 Tacticians because you need those additional actions. You need that flexibility and the ability to control who goes first, all of which is tied very directly into the access to orders dice.
Yeah, I agree. I think I don't know if a tactician needs to be better though. But
no, I think it needs to be worse. Yeah. Sorry, the clarity on that point. Tactician needs to be worse, right? If you're forced to bring 3 tacticians, it really limits the model pool you can play. So actually, if the rule was you had 2 orders dice, or 1 orders dice plus the number of models you brought to the game, and then all Tactician did was give you the ability to hold orders dice between turn and re-roll them, it would still be a useful effect, but it wouldn't be as vital to list building as it is today. Anyway, one for the future.
Yeah, exactly. So did you want to go through your list, as you call it, Fireteam Fox?
Yeah, because I'm Mythic Fox on the forum. My flag is has a fox emblem on it, and my for capture the flag, and my fire team is Fireteam Fox. So
and you're also British, and they really like foxes, right?
Yeah, that's it. There's a reason I'm called Mythic Fox, which maybe we don't have time for. But we'll talk about that. Maybe some bonus content at the end. Yeah. Anyway, so there's so starting from a position of I started with a list I start with the scenarios we're going to play. So we're going to play King of the Hill, Oddball, Slayer, and Extraction on the day. So looking at those, right? Oddball is one where it's traditionally a high risk scenario. There's a potential to have a real problem in Oddball where you don't score well and you need to score well. So Oddball really emphasises having access to rapid fire weapons. So going out the gate, I know I need those. You're going to need a reasonable amount of speed and displacement in order to play King of the Hill effectively, and Extraction effectively. Extraction really favours action compression as well, that ability to have extra movement. Slayer is Slayer, but that's always just keeping you honest about having some actual lethality in your list. So that's sort of the initial kind of, okay, I know that I'm going to want 2 sources of rapid fire in my list. You also, because you sort of displacement and frag are really important in things like King of the Hill and things like Extraction specifically. Frag is one of the most powerful effects in the game. So we're going to want 3 tacticians, 2 sources of pinning at least, and access to a couple of sources of frag. So that's sort of, we start from that framing. So the best source of pinning in the game is a Mark 7 currently. So I kind of start with, okay, well, I'm going to bring a couple of Mark 7s. And I'm then probably going to bring a Gungnir. That takes care of one of my sources of pinning, and it takes care of my rapid fire requirement. So starting to think, okay, that's kind of the shape I want to be in. That's 3 of my 4 models chosen. Now, Mark 7s are pretty toothless if they've only got rapid fire, only got access to rapid fire. So they're going to need some additional kind of capability on them. The other thing about frag weapons and things like Gungnir is they don't hit particularly hard for their points. Now, I originally started with a Plasma Gungnir, because that is the hardest hitting one, and has the kind of the range 5 benefit. But as they were nerfed by the errata the night before the event, that ended up getting changed at the last minute to a grenade launcher. I do kind of wish Mantic wouldn't keep changing the rules the night before events or on the day of events, as they've done to me the last couple of times, but I'm sure that's an aberration.
It keeps you on your
toes. It keeps me on my toes. So we change those over. So you start with, okay, we're starting to tick off the things that we want in the list, right? We know we sort of now we're going to need to upgrade. We're going to need to upgrade our Mark 7 so they're a little bit more effective. So I start with the idea that Gravity Hammer is something we used. I used at the previous event. It's something that was in the winning list of the previous event. The one I workshop with Paul, the event winner. The Gravity Hammer is arguably one of the best weapons in the game right now for the control it gives you when you're hitting somebody with it. The ability to put them into a wall to try and pin them, or to move them out of your cube, or just flatten them into a sticky paste, makes that really effective. And the combination of being able to pin an opponent with an assault rifle, then charge them so they can't snap fire you, makes that doubly effective. So it's fairly straightforward to go, okay, we're Mark 7 with a Gravity Hammer, makes a lot of sense. So that's cool. I've got another Mark 7 now that's sort of loose, and I need to get another form of frag into the list, really, possibly more than that. So I kind of started to toy around with that. The next things in the list before we get to Model 3, though, we need to take a special order. We've got to, so we'll take Snapshot because that's the best choice. Return to Sender is overcosted for an underpowered ability, and we're not bringing Master Chief, so we can't bring one-man army. So we're pretty balanced on that one. So we're sort of okay. So we're in a decent space there. I think it's very difficult not to bring 2 grapple shots in the current environment. They give you the extra speed you need, the ability to play Extraction well. You need a couple of grapple shots because you need that bonus movement to free up your actions. They're great for giving you a bit more reach on a Gravity Hammer, or for just for general mobility. So put a couple of those in, and sort of we're starting to get a list together now that's kind of got some structure to it, and we're into now. Okay, we've got the things we must have, right? We've got our double grapple shot, we've got our one-man army, we've got our 2 sources of rapid fire. We've got our Gungnir, which gives us our third bonus command dice for up to 5 command dice. We've stuck the Gravity Hammer in, so we're at 143 points there, and we've got a kind of a core that we can work from. So the question is, okay, what are we now missing that we don't want to? We've still not got tons and tons of displacement, but we've got enough. We need another source of. We probably need another source of frag, and we probably need a little bit more killing power, given our Mark 7 doesn't do a lot, and we're missing a model. so that kind of the frame is there. We've now got to kind of thicken this out with like what are the missing components. Is this making sense? I'm conscious there's a lot of me just talking quickly about models and names and things, so I'm conscious. I don't know if this is scanning for the audience.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's making sense to me. I mean, it is a lot easier when you're looking at the list. So I suggest as James goes through it, you actually look at the list as he's referring it to it. But we've got the Mark 7, which is... Can we say the points now? That's pretty much all. Yeah, the points are 40 with... Before we reveal the last model, but if you look at the list, you've already seen it.
This is Rob Fnuff from the Countercharge Podcast, and you're listening to the Mantic Universe Podcast, the only podcast that has the balls to cover all their games.
But yeah, we've got the Mark 7, that's 40 points. The Mark 7, again, that's 40 points. And then we've got the Gunner at 42 points. And so we've got the Gravity Hammer, that's 13 additional points. We've got the Grapple Shot with times 2 is 6 points. Because that's 3 per grapple shot, if that's right. Eh? Yeah, cool. Yep. And we've got Snapshot, which is a +2 on there. So... it all kind of makes sense so far, so you might as well reveal the last one so we can kind of go over all the points fully, so go.
So the last one wasn't quite chosen yet, but I know I don't want anything too expensive, right? So it'll be difficult. So we're sort of, the analysis at this stage is we're a little bit light on killing power, right? We've got Mark 7 that doesn't really do much, the one that doesn't have the gravity hammer. The frag weapons are inconsistent damages, so we do want to get some damage in, but we do also need another source of frag. So it's sort of... originally this was going to be another Gungnir, and then I played around with it a little bit. I thought, well, I still want a bit of displacement. I still want some other stuff. So the problem, I shied away from solving my last model problem and started to look at, okay, well, how do I make the second Mark 7 do stuff, right? Because I don't have enough aggression or firepower in this in the list. So I cast around a bit, and I came to the conclusion that something like either a battle rifle or a Covenant carbine would work really well. I felt at Sheffield, at the previous event at Sheffield, I lacked killing power. That's a really kind of fighty gun. Either way around, those are, you can listen to our weapons episode for my views on those two weapons. They're well costed at 11. You can get more pinning from the battle rifle. You can get more range and displacement from the carbine. I ultimately felt that the displacement on the carbine and the bit of extra killing power it gives you was probably more relevant than a third source of pin. Although I could have gone either way, really, up until the night before the event. So if we put a Covenant carbine on that Mark 7, the one that doesn't have the gravity hammer, that gives us a much more much more solid frame for that guy, and leaves us with about 46 points remaining. Now, I should say I'm assigning these to people. I know you don't do that until deployment, but I find it very helpful to think about the model and how it will be played, and there are options where you switch it. So if I'd have gone with the battle rifle, that would have swapped the Gungnir and Oddball so that I have 3 models that can pin. Right, there's there are times where you want that kind of think about that flexibility, and then we need to find another model. So I'd got about at that stage. So at that stage. So this is where the errata comes into play. So at that stage, although it's 154 points on deck at this point, the Gungnir actually was going at that point a plasma launcher Gungnir, which would be 43. So I sort of had about 45 points to play with, because that switch happened after the errata relatively late in the day, after I'd finished painting the extra models I needed for this event. So I sort of, a little bit annoying. So I toyed around with either this was going to be the grenade Gungnir, and then I would have kind of 3 points left for a translocator, which at that point I thought might be useful in Oddball. I then played a game of Oddball and came to the conclusion it isn't, and then took it out. So where I got to was I quite like the idea of having access to a bit of displacement on most of my models, or all of my models. And so I was looking at the Hazop with the shotgun, because although the Hazop isn't very good with his shotgun, if it's not his only weapon, it does mean that he's got, you've got another model with a potentially very spicy ability to kill. And often in in Slayer, what you're looking for is spikes. So you just have to keep throwing stuff at the wall until something dies. And that shotgun is very, very good at throwing things at the wall. For a second source of frag, I think the best... I mean, at the time I was doing the initial analysis, I thought the best 2 frag weapons available, or grenade weapons available, were going to be the concussion rifle. And the... were going to be the concussion rifle and the plasma launcher. That's since changed with the errata. It's now the grenade launcher and the concussion rifle. But you do you. So so sort of go, okay, right. So now, if we want to put another source of frag in, we could either go with, we could put the HAZOP in with the shotgun, which gives me a bit more mobility, and we attach the concussion rifle to him. So that gives you a 42-point model that then can sort of can threaten to do damage with the shotgun. Or if he's in the right position, if he's above you, if he's got a clear shot, he can take his chance with the shotgun. If not, he's got a very solid concussion weapon available to him. So now everybody's got kind of choices to make in fire. Everybody can displace people. I've got my 2 sources of frag, my 2 sources of pinning. I've got my melee kill capability from my hammer, and I've got enough killing power in the list, I feel, to sort of be able to at least threaten games of Slayer. So that sort of, and that left me with 3 points remaining at that point. Now, then Mantic goes and erratas the plasma weapon, so my Gungnir suddenly becomes a 42-point Gungnir, and I've got 4 points spare. So, okay, 4 points spare. It's probably not going to be a translocator. I played a couple of practice games of the oddball variant, decided the translocator wasn't going to help me. If we were playing flag, you absolutely need a translocator. We're playing oddball, so I can put a knife on my Mark 7. So I can put a knife on the Mark 7 that doesn't have a hammer to go, okay, this guy is now a little bit more competent in melee, and gives me a sort of second melee competent model. I do think knives are a little overcosted, so we go, okay, we can do that. The alternative to that was a thruster, which my teammate Paul spent the morning selling me on as we were driving down to the event, and then he sort of sold me on putting a thruster in, and then it did nothing all day. I would have been better off with a knife, but he pays you money.
He's trying to sabotage you, mate, and it didn't work.
That's what he was. So I gave him some abuse about that poor choice on the way home. But you sort of.
I guess your question was, what would you have because you did use that on the day. What would, now that you know what you know, what would you use instead?
I would put a knife in that slot, I think, on the Mark 7. There's also a possibility that the HAZOP with depending on the mix of games you're going into, the HAZOP with a spike rifle is probably actually the better of the 2 HAZOPs in a vacuum. So it might be you go for the HAZOP with a spike rifle, and then you find something to do with those 3 points. It might even be a grenade for the Mark 7, for one of the Mark 7s, potentially, so that model has access to sort of a source of pinning. A source of frag for both displacement and pinning, or it might even be an active camo for the hammer to let the hammer get into an enemy more easily. It really depends. A lot of this depends on sort of the inflection. I mean, at one point I was considering for oddball the threat sensor, because it would mean that it's very, very difficult to not be pinnable, because you can't hide from being pinned for the round with a threat sensor. So if you go second on oddball, it would enable that. Now, as it turns out, I ended up playing a lovely player with a Master Chief in oddball who can't be pinned. So all of that prep went straight out the window, and I had to win the game a different way. So you can be too prepared, and so you shouldn't over prepare for any one game mode, and that's really important. So I played some people with some very killy lists that couldn't play, for example, King of the Hill very easily. You play some people who are very, very tech for oddball, but then are going to struggle in Slayer. So you're trying to create a balance. And this is true whether you know your scenarios or whether you're trying to create a balance, for something that you don't know your scenarios. If you go too heavy into one thing, that's all very well, but you've got to play 4 rounds at an event, or you've got to play more than one. So, more than one game mode with a list potentially. So you need to be thinking about that. That's the very high level. of kind of how I approach that. The only other thing to think about with list building is if you're going to a tournament, you need to achievements. You need to score about 5 achievement points. Yeah, you need to score about 5 achievement points to stay on the pace. If you win, you need to kind of win a game at maximum score and then score 5 achievements to sort of be in the hunt or on for the podium. Now, the game still has this problem where low scoring wins are an issue. That's one of the reasons you really prioritise flag when it comes up, because winning a game of flag 1-0 is tantamount to losing, right? You're just so far behind everybody at that point because of the weird scoring system we use. Similarly, it's why I focused on oddball here, because you can't afford to be outpaced in oddball too much. There's sort of lots of ways about it. So in terms of achievements broadly focus on killing. So upping my killing power was a key thing I wanted to bring into this list because I didn't feel like I had enough at Sheffield. Also killing with specific weapon types, so killing with frag weapons, okay, killing with melee weapons. So we've got the hammer for that, we've got the melee weapon for that. Things like Avenger, where you kill somebody who's just killed one of your models. With those sort of things in mind, that's where range really helps, and having the ability to reach out and kind of get people at distance. It also helps with things like double kill, on triple kill, where you're trying to get, you're trying to get the ball rolling and score through, and score. That sort of stuff really helps, and that's why I was quite pleased with the carbine. The carbine did me some really solid work in terms of I need to get a second kill here, or I need that model to die. This thing is a nice long range weapon, and also it's pretty good at just pushing someone off a point if you need somebody to not be stood there for extraction or one of the other game modes.
So achievements versus objective, which one would you say is more important?
So you have to. So winning the game is worth 10 points. Losing the game is worth 2, right? Tournament points, right? So also the game mode scores to 18 and objectives are capped at 10. So you do have to play the mission, right? You can't survive on achievements alone. What you can do is if you maximise your achievements in this system, you can kind of overtake a bad start. So my final round opponent, the player who came second at the event, won 2 of his games, lost 2 of his games. There are other people who won 2, lost 2, who are in the middle and the bottom of the table. Now that's broadly because his list, very heavily focused on achievements, and was able to sort of, he was a great player, right? He played really well. Certainly, again, he played really well. I just got a couple of things broke my way, and I was able to take the game. I think the core thing with achievements is you need to have regard to them. I do think they should just be part of the game scoring, but I'm not going to retread that. I think that the sort of this thing of not winning the game but scoring a load of achievements is... We've done this topic. I don't like it. I think I'd rather it was just all included in the game score. And I do think that sort of the main thing is what will absolutely kneecap you in terms of finishing poorly at an event is low scoring games on objective, right? So if you've got an opponent that really turtles up, or on flag, or an opponent that really sort of really plays slowly, you don't get far through the game, that's what will really harm your score. So you need to be able to play for the objective. You need to make things happen in the objective game, right? And then the achievements are important in a sense of you need to be picking up around 5 of them. These days with war games, that's not that difficult for players. You just need to have regard to. And I think about, okay, what am I, how does my list naturally do that? That's why I've got a really good melee weapon in the list, right, with the gravity hammer. It's why there's a good source of frag. Those things are really good on their own, and they play into achievements. So, you need your turnip painted, so that's one of your points. You're probably going to get Avenger at some stage naturally. If you get a frag kill, a melee kill, then you only need a double kill or all of your models to die, and you're kind of at 5 points, you're on the pace, and at that point that's fine. I think I got near a 6 or 7 with this list, but some of that's just dice and the way it works.
Yeah, a bit of a luck. I mean, at the end of the day, this game does have an element to luck to it, but it's all about being able to adapt to the scenario in front of you. Because, I mean, you don't know the list you're going to play against. Yeah, eventually a meta will kind of settle as we get deeper into the seasons. But ultimately, you just have to be knowledgeable in what you're going to come across. Be knowledgeable in the tournament scenarios that are actually going to be in play, but also what are the lists you're most likely going to face, and how do you counter all that? And that's it doesn't matter. You could build the best list in the world if you don't understand or be prepared for what is actually going to be in the tournament in terms of the game types you're going to be facing and how you're going to adapt to it. You're going to struggle. So, I mean, you can build the best list in the world, but you ultimately just need to do your research, and I think that's key, because your list is definitely based off that research about understanding the game, understanding the tournament, and understanding the map types that you're going to be facing and how to counter every scenario. And there's going to be probably a fire team out there that can counter you. It's just a question at that point, how do you adapt from that? And so it's quite interesting hearing your understanding of how you approach these lists, and it's exactly how I thought you would approach it, but hearing it all laid out makes complete sense to me. Cool. Is there anything else that any other pieces of advice you would want to give there, James? Just to sign off on this whole thing.
So obviously this is my process, my kind of thought process. So you will each have your own. I think the key thing is think about the key thing is, like, if you know what you want your list to do, it becomes a puzzle, right? You just got to start sliding pieces in, moving things out, and kind of moving around. I mean, I've already got a list, that I think is better than this that I'm working on, that sort of for a slightly, if you were playing a different set of scenarios. But I think the main thing I see when people are talking about lists online, that I think is kind of the big miss trick is, what is the list for? What are the game modes you're targeting? To win, to play here, because I think a lot of people are still just building a Slayer list, like what is the fightiest thing I can make, which is cool if you're playing Slayer, but if you need to get across the board in King of the Hill, or you need to, get the oddball, someone pinned in the oddball off them, or run across and grab the flag, those, that all the killing power in the world is not going to help you. So it's just about like what am I trying? What missions am I targeting with this list? And if the answer is all of them, that's cool. That's going to be quite an interesting list to build. And it might be you need to think about, actually, these games, I'm just going to have to play these games without any tech, or this is the one. This one I'm going to be weaker in. So have a think, and that my main thing is think about. The main takeaway here is think about what you want your list to do, what game modes you're targeting, and then go from there.
And if you want, send us your list as well. We can actually go through them on an episode, and we can and probably put some disclaimer on it, what it's actually for. Is it going to be a Slayer only tournament? I think that will change the makeup a little bit. Is it going to be objective only, so like oddball but no Slayer or anything like that? Give us your list there, and we could actually go through it a little bit and kind of break it down and kind of see the pros and cons of it as well, because I think you will get different builds based off tournaments. Like if we're just a Slayer only one, how do you make a really kill, centric fire team that's actually going to be also, one that's going to survive as well. So I would be very interested to see what people's makeup's based off all that. So yeah, flick us an email. So either email us at kingsofwarwiki@gmail.com, or leave a comment down below in the comment section on the YouTube, or even on the Spotify. We do get some comments on the Spotify too. And actually any questions whatsoever. And actually on that feedback, I think now it's a good time, because we're really bad at shouting people out. We've had some really good positive feedback on our episodes. I can't remember how many. I think this is our 11th or 12th episode. We've done quite a lot, and it's been really great to hear people. And last episode with the Forging Flashpoint, Shay is our most watched ever episode that we've had so far, or most listened to. So it's really good to hear that people out there are actually not sick of us yet. So it's really good to hear. Specifically, I'd like to shout out Ash Rose 117, Aiden Kellier, and Fallout Vegas Boy. You've left some really nice positive comments on our YouTube channel, and it's really, I'm not going to read them out because it just seems a bit egotistical, but it was really appreciated. And actually, Aiden did mention a particular question, so I'm going to actually throw this to you, James. Now, this is actually before the etc., so it might actually change the answer now, but Aiden asked, how have you guys liked Return to Sender? In my experience, it's a good counterplay to Elite plasma spam, but also hurts your action economy because you're holding back a dice at all times. So basically, what's your response to that? Because I've tied it up nicely.
So I mean, I think Return to Sender is an interesting one. So it's pointed quite expensively at 5 points, right? So you can get quite a lot for 5 points in a fire team. And from my memory, you need to roll two defensive successors on 3 dice. Which for a lot of Spartans is pretty dicey. So it doesn't work all of the time, right? And you've got to be reasonably confident people are going to throw a lot of grenades at you. So I think it's a very meta-specific call. If you're playing elites all the time, right, I think I would definitely bring this along. If you're playing elites sort of very seldomly, you're not in a grenade-heavy meta, I think this is tantamount to being a dangerous waste of points. I'd much rather have... I don't think you can take this instead of Snapshot right now. So, another 5 points for this ability. I mean, you are going to catch some people out with it. It is going to work occasionally. I don't know the percentages off the top of my head, but my headcanon says it's going to go off less than 50% of the time, right? You're going to get I could probably work that out if I had another minute, but you're probably going to get hit. So you're not going to return to sender all that often, or it's not as reliable as you automatically throw it back, right? You're talking about, for most of the time, a maximum of 150% failure on 2 dice is dangerous. My high level on it would be, if you're in a very grenade heavy meta with a lot of elites locally, I think this is a fine purchase, if only to mess with the elite player's head, right? I think the opportunity, and because you can also hold the dice for Snapshot, which you'll often want to do against elites and their swords anyway. So, and then just use it at the moment that seems most appropriate. I think if you're not in a grenade heavy meta and you don't know you're going to be playing against a lot of elites, I wouldn't prioritize taking this in your list. Now, all of this can change when the meta changes with the banished as well. So, the banished box that comes out, if there's suddenly a lot more grenades being thrown, the value of this can change relatively. Right now, it feels at least 2 to 3 points overcosted for me to want to take regularly. But I'm in a meta that has a lot more Spartans than elites, so that also means I'm seeing a lot less grenades thrown. So it doesn't, its relative value to me is lower. So I would certainly think twice about it, but it is ultimately going to be your your choice for your meta.
Yeah, I think the special rules are really going to be something that I think is probably going to be quite controversial in the future. The more that and more special orders they get added, I think that's going to be quite interesting to see how the meta changes when it comes to the special orders. I've got a feeling, that's going to be interesting. But yeah, that's pretty much it. All of us done. Have you got anything else you want to cover there, James? I think we covered quite a lot today.
I think we covered a lot of ground today. I'm hoping the sort of list writing section was useful to people. We'll keep updating and talking about lists and relative values of things as we go. And just thank you all for listening. And meanwhile, play some Halo. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. And for those that want to be involved in the conversations, make sure you join our Discord. We do have a MUP Halo section there, and we do talk about it throughout the day. James posts his models there as well. They look fantastic. I'm hoping to actually use them in the thumbnail for this particular episode. But you can post your own questions, and we can you guys can be involved in the questions coming out. We do have a possibly collaboration coming out with another podcast, hopefully, that we can pull that off, and so we'll pose for questions in that as well. So make sure you join the Discord, leave a comment down below if you want to be featured in the next episode, either on our Spotify or on the YouTube. We also have a Patreon if you want to chuck us a buck. If you notice that we've just upgraded our logo for the episodes, and Probably, hopefully, the theme song will be different as well, because we are getting a Halo theme song made up for, hopefully for this episode, but if not, it will be sometime soon. If it was this episode, you heard it already, and I hope you liked it. And we're actually trying to improve a lot of things, so any feedback is really greatly appreciated. So thank you all for tuning in once again. We'll be back in a couple of weeks as we normally are. And yeah, until next time, take care.
Have a great day, everybody.